So hello and welcome everyone for 4th of September 2023. So I hope आप सब अच्छा होंगे, रिचार्ज होंगे पढ़ाई करने के लिए सुबह सुबह। तो आज की इम्पोर्टेंट आर्टिकल हिंदू न्यूज़पेपर से देख लेते हैं। तो फर्स्ट वन इज fiscally imprudent policies popularism affect the poor, पेज नंबर 1. Then civic agencies police go through G20 checklist again, ये पेज नंबर 2 का है. देन ऑनवर्ड सनवर्ड पेज नंबर 6 एडिटोरियल का पार्ट है ये. नेक्स्ट जो है मेजरिंग हंगर अक्रॉस द स्टेट पेज नंबर 7. द नॉर्दर्न प्लेन्स ऑफ इंडिया इज द मोस्ट पोल्यूटेड रीजन. नेक्स्ट जो है स्टेटस ऑफ राइट टू इंफॉर्मेशन एक्ट पेज नंबर 8. Then, what is the debate around one nation, one election? Next is GDP-centric view changing to human-centric one. Next one is Aditya L1 healthy in new orbit according to ISRO. Then centers Diksha e-education platform to offer AI help. Page number 12. Then next है G20 meet visit by Lavrov, Macron add to diplomatic buzz in ढाका. ये पेज नंबर 3 और लास्ट आर्टिकल है. तो चलिए वन बाय वन स्टार्ट करते हैं. पहला जो है फिजिकली इम्प्रूडेंट पॉलिसीज पॉपुलरिज्म अफेक्ट द पुअर अकॉर्डिंग टू पीएम. In an interview ahead of G20 summit, Modi says he has warned the states against such plans. He dismisses the reaction against holding meetings in Kashmir, Arunachal Pradesh in the run-up to summit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has cautioned against irresponsible financial policies and populism, saying that these measures may give political results in short term, but will extract a great social and economic price in the long term, with the most consequences for the poorest and most vulnerable. In an interview to the news agency Press Trust of India released on Sunday, Mr. Modi said that India had been sensitive to neighbors such as Sri Lanka which were going through such a crisis, and mentioned the domestic situation. I have urged our state governments to be conscious about financial discipline as well, whether it is at the National Conference of Chief Secretaries or any such platform. I have said that financially irresponsible policies and populism may give political result in the short term, but will extract a great social and economic price in the long term. In a strong statement on reaction from countries such as Pakistan and held China to meeting held in Kashmir and Arunachal Pradesh in the run-up to the G20 summit in New Delhi, Mr. Modi said, such a question would be valid if we had refrained from conducting meeting in those venues. Ours is such a vast, beautiful and diverse nation. When G20 meetings are happening, it is not it natural that meetings will be held in every part of our country. He said that when it came to energy security, the world was veering towards India's position that there was no one size fits all solution. Our principle is simple: diversity is our best bet, whether in society or in terms of our energy mix. Given given the different pathways countries are on, our pathways for energy transition will be different. Despite having 17% of the world's population, India's historic share in cumulative emissions has been less than 5%, yet we have left no stone unturned in meeting our climate goals, he said. He said that India would be a developed country by the end of the Amrit Kal period in 2047. India is again on the rise. The speed with which we jumped 5 spots from the 10th largest economy to fifth largest in less than a decade has conveyed the fact that India means business. We have democracy, demography, and diversity with us. As I said, now a fourth D is getting added to it. That is development. Indians who are living in this era have a great chance to lay a foundation for growth that will be remembered for the next 1000 years. He said, inclusive innovatives. This is why you see an unprecedented rise across multiple domains. By 2047, I am sure that our country will be among the developed countries. Our economy will be even more inclusive and innovative. Our poor people will comprehensively win the battle against poverty. Health, education, and social sector outcomes will be among the best in the world. Corruption, casteism, and communalism will have no place in our national life. The quality of life of our people will be at par with the best countries of the world. Most importantly, we will achieve all of this while caring for both nature and culture. He said debt restructuring was an important concern highlighted under India's presidency of G20. Our G20 presidency has placed a significant emphasis on addressing the global challenges posed by debt vulnerabilities, especially for nations in the global south. He said G20 finance ministers and central governors have acknowledged the good progress in depth department of common framework countries and beyond the common framework too. We have also been greatly sensitive to the needs of our valued neighbors Sri Lanka during their tough times, he said. To accelerate global debt restructuring efforts, the Global Sovereign Debt Roundtable, a joint initiative of IMF, World Bank, and the G20 presidency, was launched earlier this year. This will strengthen communication among key stakeholders and facilitate effective debt treatment, he added. Responding to a question on the United Nations and its responsiveness to the new developing world order, Mr. Modi emphasized that institutions can retain relevance only when they change with the times. A mid 20th century approach cannot serve the world in the 21st century, so our international institutions need to recognize challenging realities, expand their decision-making forums, relocate their priorities, and ensure representation of voices that matters. When this is not done on time, then smaller or regional forums begin to attain more importance. The G20 is certainly one of the institutions that is being looked at with hope by many countries because the world is looking for actions and outcomes, no matter where they come from. He said, as a diverse nation, the mother of democracy, the home to one of the world's largest population of youth and the growth engine of the world, India has a lot to contribute to the shaping of the future of the world, he added, reflecting on the current scenario with regard to price volatility the world over. Prime Minister Modi said that inflation was a key issue being faced by world. Inflation is a key issue that the world faces. Our G20 presidency has engaged the G20 finance ministers and the central bank governors. It was recognized that timely and clear communication of policy stances by central banks is crucial. This can ensure that policies taken by each country to combat inflation do not lead to negative repercussions in other countries. Significant emphasis was also placed on enabling countries to share policy experience on how they tackle the challenges as associated with food and energy price volatility, especially since food and energy markets are closely interconnected, he said. The second जो article है, civic agency police go through G20 checklist again. Civic agency police go through G20 checklist again. The New Delhi Municipal Corporation (NDMC) has set up a control room at its Humayun Road Disaster Management Centre to coordinate with various agencies such as the Delhi Police and the Central Public Work Department (CPWD) during the G20 summit. The control room, which will be operational till September 10, will ensure seamless delivery of civic services during the summit, said an official. NDMC Chairman Satish Upadhyay said a dedicated team will supervise and monitor all summit-related preparations. 12 senior officers have been appointed as nodal officers to facilitate coordination among the various NDMC departments at the Humayun Road control. The officers have also been tasked with ensuring seamless communication between the urban body and external agencies. NDMC Chairman Amit Yadav said the NDMC said its team will work around the clock in 4 shifts and that 3 senior officers will oversee the control room. An official said 11 heads of department will be part of the quick response team created for the summit. The nodal officers have been instructed to maintain a logbook documenting all complaints and the corresponding actions taken for each complaint. A senior official said, adding that the council will engage over 3,000 workers for the on-keep of the New Delhi area during the summit. Mr. Upadhyay said the disaster management center constructed in 2010-11 is a versatile facility equipped with a conference hall that can accommodate up to 80 people. 12,000 spots cleaned. Mayor Sally Oberoi said the Municipal Corporation of Delhi has deployed 52 mechanical sweeping machines to clean various parts of the city including Pragati Maidan and Old Delhi. She told reporters that the civic body is also carrying out anti-larval spraying in all wards. She added that teams have also been created to ensure cleanliness in areas near hotels, tourist spots, and the airport. The MCD has cleared 12,000 garbage dumping spots in Delhi over the past 24 hours, an official said. Mrs. Oberoi and Aam Aadmi Party's MCD in charge Durgesh Pathak visited Lakshminagar and Narayana Vihar on Sunday morning to take stock of the civic body's work. Delhi police held full dress rehearsal for the G20 summit on Sunday. An officer said police carrots moved from different part of the national capital towards the New Delhi district. The first rehearsal was held from 5 p.m. to 9 a.m., the second between 9:30 a.m. to 10 a.m., and the last between 12:30 p.m. to 4 p.m., a senior officer said. Use metro for airports. The policy advised people to use metro services for commuting to the airport as well as New Delhi and Old Delhi railway station during the dress rehearsal. The police also advised people to follow real-time traffic update on the G20 virtual help desk to get route suggestion for commuting to the airport, railway station or bus terminals. Then, sir, the next article editorial say onward sunward. Aditya alone gives India's space program one more boundary to push. Roughly a week after the Indian Space Research Organization (ISRO) soft landed a robotic lander and a rover on the moon's south polar region, it launched India's first space mission dedicated to studying the sun. In the in the form of a spacecraft named Aditya L1. Barely half a day after the launch, ISRO announced that its lunar rover had completed the surface studies it had planned and that it had been parked ahead of 2 weeks long lunar night. This vignette illustrates a certain maturity on the part of the Indian space program. It enters a phase where its growth from strength to strength becomes indistinguishable from international leadership in space exploration, even as it carries forward an old tradition of studying the sun, exemplified by the Kodaikanal Solar Observatory. Aditya L1 will study the sun in multiple wavelengths with its suite of seven instruments, four remote sensing and three in situ by directly sampling a particular volume of space. Even though it is the star closest to the earth and has been and continues to be observed by a panoply of telescopes, the sun still holds many secrets. Some of them are simply waiting to be discovered, although that is easier said than done given the brutality of the star's influence on its immediate surroundings. One example is the particulars of the solar wind, a stream of charged particles that stream out from the sun into space. Considering the solar wind affects space weather and in turn the digital component of a spacecraft, Aditya L1's findings could inform future space missions as well. Others are mysteries, bundles of fact not yet fully explained by scientific theories. The archetypal example is the coronal heating problem why the uppermost layer of the sun's atmosphere is 1,000 times hotter than the sun's surface. In the next 4 or so months, Aditya L1 will travel to L1 Lagrange point, a point 1.5 million kilometers from the Earth, where the spacecraft will have an unobstructed view of the unobstructed view of the star while it stays in a hollow orbit around the point. To deepen its relevance, Aditya L1 will also have to record and transmit data to Earth as quickly as possible, where the data downlink and analysis pipeline will have to operate with similar haste so that scientists can piece together a concurrent image of the sun. ISRO has also demonstrated its ability to handle complex navigational tasks in the interplanetary mission, including the Lunar Space Program Chandrayaan, with help from Foreign Space Agency, and the attendant skills will be brought to bear on Aditya L1 as well. Taken together, while Aditya L1 seems relatively simple given ISRO's recent achievements, it gives the Indian space program and the national solar physics community one more boundary to push. Next है measuring hunger across the states. Despite being a major food producer with extensive food security schemes and the largest public distribution system in the world, India still grapples with significant level of food insecurity, hunger, and child malnutrition. The Global Hunger Index 2022 ranked India 107 among 121 countries, behind Nigeria 103, Pakistan 99. The GHI provides a composite measurement and tracks undernourishment and hunger at the national level across three dimensions: calorie nourishment, child malnutrition, and under 5 mortality. According to the State of Food Security and Nutrition in the World Report of 2022, India is home to 224.3 million unnourished people. Mm, Disparities are evident among states leveraging substantial data that encompasses the three dimension of the GHI is enabled the development of an India specific hunger index at the level of states and union territories. This plays a pivotal role in evaluating the extent of undernourishment at a more localized scale, which is critical for meeting the sustainable development goal of eradicating hunger and malnutrition. The State Hunger Index. The GHI is computed using four indicators: the prevalence of calorie undernourishment and of stunting, wasting, and mortality among children below the age of 5 and under 5 mortality rate. The State Hunger Index is calculated using the same indicator except calorie undernourishment, which is replaced by body mass index undernourishment among the working age population, as data on calorie undernourishment are not available since 2012. Data for stunting, wasting, and mortality among children below the age of 5 are sourced from the fifth round of National Family Health Survey NFHS 5, while the prevalence of BMI undernourishment is computed using NFHS 5 2019 and 21 and the Web one of the longitudinal aging study in India 2017-18. The calculation of SHI score involves combining the normalized values of the four indicators using the techniques recommended by GHI. The SHI scores ranging between 0 to 100, with higher scores indicating more hunger, scores below 10 signified low hunger, 10-20 moderate, 20-30 serious, 30-40 alarming, and 50 or above are extremely alarming. In the SHI, Bihar, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh scored 35, which places them in the alarming category. Gujarat, Uttar Pradesh, Assam, Odisha, Madhya Pradesh, Tripura, Maharashtra, and West Bengal all scored above national average 29. The performance of these states resembles that African nations such as Haiti, Niger, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. On the other hand, Chandigarh scored 12 and Sikkim, Puducherry, and Kerala all scored below 16. These states, along with Manipur, Mizoram, Punjab, Delhi, Arunachal Pradesh, Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and Tamil Nadu, fall under the moderate hunger category. All the other states which scored below the national average and above 20 have a problem of serious hunger. No state falls under the low hunger category. The impact of COVID-19 on the SHI is not captured here since post-pandemic estimates are not yet available. In 2008, Purnima Menon, Anil Deolalikar, and Anjur Bhaskar made a comparable effort to grasp the variation in hunger at a subnational level using the then methodology of computing GHI. Among the 17 states they assessed, Punjab led the list with Kerala and Andhra Pradesh following closely as the top performers. On the other hand, Madhya Pradesh, Jharkhand, Bihar, and Chhattisgarh were ranked as the least performing states over the last half a decade. India's GHI score has deteriorated primarily due to the increasing prevalence of calories undernourishment. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization, the proportion of the calorie undernourishment in India has been escalating since 2017, reaching 16.3% in 2020, equivalent to the 2009 statistics. The Indian government has disputed this conclusion by raising concerns about the data and methodology using in calculating the GHI. However, it has not been able to provide empirical evidence to support its claim. Notably, no national sample survey round on nutritional intake has been conducted by the government since 2011-12, which used to offer insights into the prevalence of calorie undernourishment at national and subnational level. In the 78th round of the NSS conducted in 2020-21, four key questions were included to gauge household food insecurity. Unfortunately, information on this is missing from the NSS report. Facing the reality. While the GHI has faced significant criticism from experts regarding its conceptualization, indicator selection, and aggregation methods, it does provide critical insight into the state of undernourishment and child nutrition. India's poor performance in the GHI is primarily attributed to its high prevalence of undernourishment and child malnutrition. India ranks unfavorably in child wasting performing foods than many low-income African nations. The NFHS 5 indicated that one-third of children under the age of 5 are stunted and underweight, while every fifth child suffers from wasting. Despite India's notable progress in elevating extreme poverty over the last 15 years, as indicated by the recent National Multidimensional Poverty Index, challenges persist in addressing the disparity in food insecurity, hunger, and child malnutrition. The next year, the northern plains of India is the most polluted region. Data from the Air Quality Life Index 2021 shows that failure to meet the World Health Organization guidelines on reducing PM 2.5 particulate matter pollution to 5 would cut global life expectancy by 2.3 years. AQLI AQLI data emphasizes that ambient particulate pollution poses the world's greatest external risk to human health. South Asia is at the center of the crisis, according to AQLI data from 2013 to 2021. Particulate pollution in South Asia surged by 9.7%, which is estimated to reduce life expectancy in the region by an additional 6 months. Bangladesh, India, Nepal, and Pakistan, where 22.9% of the global pollution lives, are the most polluted country in the world. Chart one. In Bangladesh, the most polluted country in 2021, people potentially lost an average of 6.8 years of life due to air pollution not meeting WHO guidelines. In contrast, the average person from the US lost just 3.6 months. Notably, in China stands out due to its success in reducing pollution by staggering 42.3% from the 2013 to 2021 and extending the average life expectancy of its population by 2.2 years. This reduction can be attributed to the country's policy initiatives to combat pollution. In 2014, in India, the second most polluted country in the world, in 2021, particulate pollution is the greatest the threat to human health. Data reveal a further rise in PM 2.5 pollution from 56.2 nanogram per cubic meter in 2020 to 58.7 in 2021, exceeding the WHO guidelines by more than 10 times. The average Indian resident is said to lose 5.3 years of the life expectancy is if WHO guidelines remain unmet. In contrast, cardiovascular disease reduce the average Indian life expectancy by about 4.5 years, while child and maternal malnutrition reduces it by 1.8 years. Chart 3 shows the most polluted states in India and the potential life expectancy loss if the potential life expectancy loss if pollution levels do not meet WHO guidelines in Delhi, the world's most polluted city, 18 million people could lose 11.9 years of life expectancy relative to the WHO guidelines and 8.5 years of life expectancy related to the national guideline if current pollution level persists. The northern plains, home to over half a billion people and 38.9% of India's population, is the most polluted region. The northern plains include the states and union territories of Bihar, Chandigarh, Delhi, Haryana, Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, and West Bengal. Chart 4 shows the annual average of PM 2.5 concentrations in India. The northern plains and all other regions. In the northern plains, the average resident is said to lose about 8 years of life expectancy if pollution level persists and policies do not succeed in reducing pollution to level as prescribed by the WHO. Pollution once concentrated concentrated in the northern region has spread to other parts of the country over the last 2 decades. For instance, in Maharashtra and Madhya Pradesh, which have a combined population of 204.2 million, pollution has surged by 76.8% and 78.5% respectively since 2000, causing a loss of an additional 1.8 years to 2.3 years of life expectancy compared to 2000 levels. AQLI's life expectancy calculations are based on a pair of peer-reviewed studies Chen et al. 2013 and Ebenstein et al. 2017, co-authored by Michael Greenstone. These studies compared two pollution subgroups exposed to different levels of particulate air pollution. This method effectively isolated the impact of particulate air pollution from other health factors, and Ebenstein et al. Found that sustained exposure to an addition 10 microgram per meter cube of PM 2.5 reduces life expectancy by 0.98 years. The next status of Right to Information Act. Status of Right to Information Act. What have been the various amendments to RTI Act 2005? How have payment methods and poorly staffed Information Commission undermined the Act? Has the progress of applying for RTI online been simplified? Is the public satisfied with the functioning of the RTI process? For 13 years, the Right to Information Act 2005 helped citizens obtain information and data from central and state institutions that are not readily available in the public domain. The RTI Act allow, allows any citizen to make requests for access to data, document and other information in the government's possessions. India's RTI Act has been commonly cited as among the most comprehensive public records access legislations in the world. In recent years, though, activists worry that the system is being made less and less effective, shutting off a crucial means to hold public officials accountable. Has the RTI Act been amended apart from allowing certain information to be kept secret for national security and sovereignty reasons? sovereign region, the RTI Act makes one exemption. It prohibits the personal data disclosure of citizens by government unless there is an overriding public interest in doing so. The Digital Personal Data Protection Act 2023 amended these qualified prohibitions into a total prohibition. However, the National Campaign for People Right to Information argued that it would make social audits in ration distribution impossible to carry out. In social audit, a community member gets a list of ration beneficiaries through an RTI request and individually verifies that the beneficiaries got what they appear to have received on paper. There are also concerns that powerful public officials would evade accountability by invoking this blanket ban on disclosing personal information. Past amendments to the RTI Act have also raised concern. The RTI to information, the Right to Information Amendment Act in 2019 gave the Union government unilateral power in deciding how long information commissions who hear appeals against unsatisfactory or absent RTI responses can serve and what their salaries are. How else? How else is the RTI Act undermined? The RTI Act itself is not the only way activists see the transparency. It has urged in undermined the RTI Act's implementation is dependent on subordinate rules made by the union government and state government. For instance, the simple matter of what payment method a public authority can accept is left to states to decide. Some states like Tamil Nadu do not accept Indian Postal Order IPOs, which are checks which are checks that can be brought at the post office and attached to an application as payment. IPOs are generally the easiest payment method to obtain. Other payment methods are less convenient or otherwise burdensome. Court fee stamps can only be purchased at a courthouse, and a demand draft or DD for 10 rupee may require a processing fee that is over twice that amount. Tardy appointment to Information Commission. The Central Information Commission (CIC) for the Union Government and various state information commission have also undermined confidence in the RTI framework, as appeals can take months or even years to be heard. If ever, for example, the Jharkhand SIC has had no commissioners to hear appeals since May 2020, essentially suspending the ability to appeals in ineffective administration of the RTI Act in the states. What about online RTIs? Allowing RTIs application to be filled online largely removes some barrier. Instead of obtaining uncommon financial instruments, citizen can simply file a request online and pay with UPI. However, many states do not have an online RTI portal. And even if they do, it is common for many state government bodies to simply not be registered on the portal. The Union government's RTI portal, launched in 2013, is also past its prime. While many public authorities under the Union government are on the portal, filling application on it has become harder. Having an account on the RTI online portal allowed citizens to have their personal particulars filled in on each application by default. Now, however, the facility to create an account has disappeared. and the site forces all users to enter their particulars address each time they file an application. Further, past data of applicants has been stuttering in and out of the portal. In August, data of application filed by the users before 2022 disappeared without a trace. And after the Hindu reported this, the government restored the applications. What next? Beyond the evident structural problem that institutions and websites for RTI pose, dissatisfaction is growing at the most basic level. More and more fast appeals are being filed. Venkatesh Nayak, director of Commonwealth Human Rights Initiative (NGO), said in an analysis of the newest report by the CIC, this indicates, according to Mr. Nayak, that people are increasingly dissatisfied with the information they are receiving from public officials, which, while activists have long warned of the weakening of the RTI Act, most of the damage they have seen is not merely from the changes in the text of the law, but from the ways that various institutions across different government apparatus discharge their duties. In the narrowing of avenues to conveniently file requests and obtain information after doing so, and having appeals fall on staffed appellate bodies. What is the debate around one nation, one election? What is the debate around one nation, one election? How does having simultaneous election across Lok Sabha and state assemblies counter federalism? On September 1, the central government set up a panel headed by former President Ramnath Kovind to explore the feasibility of the one. On September 1, the central government set up a panel headed by former President Ramnath Kovind to explore the feasibility of one nation, one election plan. What is the ONOE plan? The idea of one nation, one election centers around the concept of synchronizing the timing of Lok Sabha and state assembly election across all states to reduce the frequency of polls throughout the country. After the enforcement of the Constitution of January 26, 1950, the first ever general election to the Lok Sabha and all states assembly were conducted simultaneously in 1951-52. The practice continued into the three subsequent Lok Sabha elections until 1967, after which it was disrupted. The cycle was first broken in 1959 after the centre invoked Article 356 in failure of constitutional machinery of the constitution to dismiss the then Kerala government. Subsequently, due to defection and counter-defections between parties and several legislative assemblies dissolved post 1960, which eventually led to separate polls for Lok Sabha and state assemblies. Currently, the assemblies polls in the states of Arunachal Pradesh, Sikkim, Andhra Pradesh, and Odisha are held together with Lok Sabha election. What do reports say about UNOE? In August 2018, the Law Commission of India, chaired by Justice B.S. Chauhan, released a draft report on simultaneous election wherein the constitutional and legal questions related to the issue were analysed. Notably, the Commission submitted that simultaneous elections are not feasible within the existing framework of the Constitution. It is said that the Constitution, the Representation of the People's Act 1951, and the rules of procedure of Lok Sabha and state assemblies would require appropriate amendment to conduct simultaneous simultaneous poll. The Commission also recommended it received ratification from at least 50% of the states. However, with respect to the advantage of holding simultaneous polls, the simultaneous Commission said that OEE will lead to the saving of public money, reducing the strain on the administrative setup and security forces, timely implementation of government policies, and administrative focus on the development activities rather than electioneering. Way back in 1999, the LCI headed by Justice B.P. Jeevan Reddy also advocated for simultaneous elections. What are the concerns? The foremost concern is with regard to its feasibility. Article 83, Clause 2 and 172 of the Constitution stipulates that the tenure of Lok Sabha and State Assembly respectively will last 5 years unless dissolved earlier, and there can be some circumstances, as in Article 356, wherein assemblies can be dissolved earlier. Then next जो है GDP centric view changing to human centric one. Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaks on G20 fiscal responsibility, renewable energy, and the challenge of debt restructuring, which has become a problem for the global south. Edited experts, the G20 presidency has given India the opportunity to promote its vision for a sustainable, inclusive, and equitable world and to raise its profile as a leader in the Indo-Pacific region. Please share your thought on the achievement of the Indian presidency. The genesis of G20 was at the end of the last century. The major economies of the world got together with a vision of a collective and coordinated response to economic crisis. Its silence grew even more during the global economic crisis in the first decade of the 21st century. But when the pandemic struck, the world understood that in addition to the economic challenges, there were also other important and immediate challenges impacting humanity. By this time, the world was already taking note of India's human-centric model of development. India's response to the pandemic through a clear and coordinated approach, direct assistance to the most vulnerable, using technology, coming up with vaccines and running the world's largest vaccine drive and sharing medicines and vaccines with nearly 150 countries. These were noted and well appreciated. Many positive impacts are coming out of India's G20 presidency. The effort toward greater inclusion for the global south, especially Africa, in the global affairs has gained momentum. India's G20 presidency has also sowed the seed of confidence in the countries of the so-called Third World. The G20 has emerged as the most influential bloc in the world, making up 85% of the global GDP. What do you see as the biggest challenge facing it as you hand over the presidency to Brazil? GDP-centric view of the world is now changing to a human-centric one, like a new world order was seen after the Second World War. A new world order is taking shape. Post-COVID parameters of influence and impact are changing, and this needs to be recognized. The Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas model that has shown the way in India can also be a guiding principle for the welfare of the world, irrespective of the size of the GDP. Every voice matters. India has proposed making the Africa Union a permanent member of G20. You launched the Solar Alliance a few years ago. Now you are proposing a biofuel alliance, which we believe you will unveil at G20. What is the objective and how will it help import-dependent countries such as India on energy security. We are perhaps the first among the G20 countries to have achieved our climate target 9 years ahead of the scheduled date. We have moved from being just a member of a global effort to playing leading role in many initiatives like the International Solar Alliance and Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure are bringing countries together for the planet. Now, the Biofuel Alliance is another step in this direction. Such alliances are aimed at creating options for developing countries. Biofuel are also important for the perspective of the circular economy. Even your critics have admired the way you made G20 a buzzword during India's presidency and planned a year-long calendar of high-profile meetings across the country. How did you envisage this concept of spreading G20 meeting across India? Unfortunately, in the past, there used to be an attitude of getting things done right here in Delhi, in and around Vigyan Bhavan. By the time our G20 presidency term ends, over 220 meetings would have happened across 60 cities in all 28 states and 8 union territories. Over 1 lakh participants from around 125 nationalities would have witnessed the skills of Indians. Some of our neighbors raised objection to the venues of some of the meetings. What message did we send by hosting foreign leaders at G20 in Kashmir and Arunachal Pradesh, notwithstanding the objection raised by Pakistan and China? Ours is such a vast, beautiful and diverse nation. When G20 meetings are happening, it is not a natural that a meeting will be held even in every part of our country. Are we expecting any consensus at the G20 summit on the challenge of debt restructuring, which has become a problem for global south? Is India helping countries trapped in the Chinese debt trap such as Sri Lanka, Sudan, etc.? How much increase in allocation of assistance has India made to these countries? The debt crisis is indeed a matter of great concern for the world, especially developing countries. First countries that are going through debt crisis or have gone through it have begun to give greater importance to financial discipline. You are well aware that I have urged our state governments to be conscious about financial discipline as well, whether it is in the National Conference of Chief Secretaries or any such platform. I have said that financially irresponsible policies and populism may give political result in the short term, but will extract a great social and economic price in the long term. Those who suffer the consequences the most are often the poorest and the most vulnerable. Our G20 presidency has placed a significant emphasis on addressing the global challenges posed by debt vulnerabilities, especially for nations in the global south. We have also been greatly sensitive to the needs of our valued neighbor Sri Lanka during their tough times. Your message to President Putin in Samarkand that this is not an era of war has won worldwide endorsement. Given the differences between G7 and the China-Russia combined, it will be difficult for the bloc to adopt this message. In that context, what can India do to help forge a consequences? There are many different conflicts across various regions. All of them need to be resolved through dialogue and diplomacy. This is our stand on any conflict anywhere, whether as G20 presidency or not. We will support every effort to ensure peace across the world. The next जो है आदित्य L1 healthy in new orbit according to ISRO. Ice in Bengaluru injected the mission into an earthbound orbit. It will stay on such orbit for 16 days. Next move planned for tomorrow. The Indian Space Research Organisation on Sunday performed the first earthbound fairing to raise the orbit of Aditya L1, India's first solar observatory mission, which was launched on Saturday. The ISRO telemetry tracking and command network ISTRAC in Bengaluru performed the maneuver. The satellite was healthy and operating normally. Nominally, the ISRO posted on X platform, formerly Twitter. The new orbit, the new orbit attained was 245 km into 22,459 km. The next maneuver was scheduled for around 3 a.m. on Tuesday. After the successful launch, the ISRO said that Aditya L1 started generating power as the solar panels were deployed. Aditya L1 will stay on earthbound orbit for 16 days, during which it will undergo 5 maneuvers to gain the necessary velocity for its journey. Subsequently, Aditya L1 undergoes a trans-Lagrangian L1 insertion maneuver, making the beginning of its 110-day trajectory to the destination around the L1 Lagrange point. Upon arrival at L1 point, another maneuver binds Aditya L1 to an orbit around the L1 and a balanced gravitational location between the Earth and the Sun. The satellite spends its whole mission life orbiting around L1 in an irregularly shaped orbit in a plane roughly perpendicular to the line joining the Earth and the Sun. The next जो है सेंटर से दीक्षा ई एजुकेशन प्लेटफॉर्म टू ऑफर AI help. The National E-Governance Division of the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology is set to integrate personalized adaptive learning into its existing digital infrastructure for knowledge sharing platform. The PALS software-based approach is expected to allow each student to have an individualized learning experience over the course of the curriculum based on their unique needs and abilities. Diksha, which comes under the Education Ministry, provides e-content for schools by an online portal and a mobile application. It has embedded as assistive technologies for learners with visual or hearing challenges. However, Diksha is a static content repository. Diksha features digitized National Council of Education Research of National Council of Educational Research and Training textbook NCERT used by national and state boards. Apart from this, Diksha hosts 2.43 lakh contributions by 11,624 academics by way of teaching videos, explainers, and particular practices questions. Currently, all these contributions are scattered across the platform. The NCERT has sought the MIT MIT's expertise in facilitating the PALS integration into Diksha in an example of how it works. If a student of class 9 is learning in the Pythagoras theorem and makes a calculation mistake, the AI learning system flags it and loops the student back to a basic video of how to make the calculation. In some states, private players are already administering the PAL, which work on AI or artificial intelligence, but budget constraints have been an obstacle. Massive expert exercise. Building the PAL is a massive exercise. Content from across subject will have to be categorized and different chunks will have to be tagged. New content may also have to be created. The tagging of content is important to create learning loops where say a student faces a difficulty at a certain task, then supportive material offering an explanation of the tagged concept can be provided. A senior MIT official told the Hindu. The official added that school students found chemistry, mathematics, and physics for class 9 to 12 to be most difficult subjects, and the intention is to start building the PL for the for these classes to begin with nearly 35 lakh students dropping out in Class 10 and ineligible to qualify for Class 11 every year. The Education Ministry wants to adopt digital learning with a focus on improving learning outcomes and school retention. Experiments in states. Andhra Pradesh has signed contracts with three privately owned edtech companies: Reliance Geo Platforms, Startup Imbibe, uh, Genius and MindSpark for training teachers to use IT application in the classroom, provide analytics for remedial learning, and help students improve their conceptual understanding. We are currently implementing the PAL in 20 schools of Prakasam district for class 6 to 9. A senior Geo platform official said building the core tech platform may cost close to 2 to 3 crore, and then developing and tagging of content will cost another 20 crore. The streaming cost incurred for data stored in cloud-based servers is recurring and depends on the usage. If say 40 crore school going student in India stream data for 2 hours in a day or a week, the cost will run into several hundred crores, the Meiti official added. In Assam, for instance, the PAL was adapted in 200 schools from class 6 to 10. Each school had nearly 200 students, and MIB provided 10 devices per school. After implementing the project for 2 years, Assam discontinued it, citing lack of funds. The Geo official said similarly in Haryana, after floating the tender, the state government said MIB's queues for streaming content was too high, and the process of adopting PAL came to a standstill. For implementing the PAL project in the whole state, we had estimated a yearly streaming cost of 27 crore rupees. Considering on an average, one child in a week sees four videos of 15 minutes on the platform. This cost was felt to be very high by the government, the Geo official said. Poll-bound state Madhya Pradesh too is mulling over introducing poll for students from class 6 to 10 on its flagship state education portal, the CM Rise. Apart from Paul Mighty is also considering the introduction of a voice commands in Diksha 2.0 as a part of AI-enabled learning. Just like ChatGPT, the student can access a summaries of chapters by giving voice commands and so on. The military official said the process of making poll is time consuming, and it will still take 3 to 4 years to develop the tech and roll it out for use. The source added the NEGD will float an expression of interest to access the market for tech companies that can help launch poll and possibly integrate it with Diksha 2.0. तो आज का लास्ट जो आर्टिकल है G20 G20 मीट visits by Lavrov Macron added to the diplomatic buzz in Dhaka. The first fortnight of September is appearing hectic in Dhaka's diplomatic calendar with multiple high-profile visits and agreements that are being scheduled. The series is expected to start with the arrival of Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov to Dhaka on September 7. This will be followed by the visit of French President Emmanuel Macron on September 11. The two visits are unique as a French president is visiting Dhaka after nearly 33 years, and Mr. Lavrov is the first foreign minister of Moscow to visit Bangladesh in its history. In between, Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina is due to arrive in New Delhi in the afternoon of September 8 and participate in the G20 meetings where Bangladesh is among the guest countries. Russia's state energy company Rosatom is building Bangladesh's first nuclear power plant in Rupur, and the visit of Mr. Lavrov has raised expectation that the power plant is going to be completed soon. The 2015 contract signed with the Rosatom was Bangladesh's biggest agreement, worth at least $12.65 billion out of the total amount. Russia, known to have funded nearly 90%. However, repayment has been facing a few issues as Russia continues to face international sanctions because of the campaign in Ukraine. Sources have indicated Dhaka's willingness for a bilateral meeting between Mr. Hasina and Prime Minister Narendra Modi during her stay in New Delhi, while maintaining that she may not visit the Sufi shrine in Ajmer as she has to head back home to welcome French President Emmanuel Macron. Both the visits and Mrs. Hasina's presence in Delhi during G20 are being seen in the context of upcoming election that is likely to be announced in October. With deepening ties in multiple world capitals, Mr. Hasina is clearly sending a message to her political opponents such as BNP, which has demanded that polls should be held under a caretaker government. Mrs. Hasina has so far rejected that demand. तो आज के लिए इतना ही. चलिए फिर कल से शुरू करते हैं. थैंक यू. थैंक यू. थैंक यू एवरीवन.